So when you find a business, you're going to do these 3 steps. Number one, you will list the pros and cons of this business. I know, sounds super elementary, but it really is for the purpose of you being able to articulate this to others, not only to your as to why you want to be interested in this business, maybe why you want to purchase it to this business, but maybe you'll have partners that need to understand why this business and what are some of the negatives that you'll need to overcome. Maybe you'll need to pitch this to potential private money lenders, and you need to know why this is a good business and some of its downfalls that you are going to overcome. You need to be able to do both. You can't just share the great things about the business. You've got to understand that there will be negatives that you need to highlight and know about this particular business. And this is something that you can come up with in any business, in any type of business. I really want to encourage that you can yourself drum up some pros and cons of any type of business. You don't need to be a super professional in one particular space. A business is a business, period. It's going to have certain elements that may be different than others, but that is where you'll eventually move into the next phase and originate your own questions that you'll need, that you will get answered about it. You don't need to be scared that you don't know what is in this business. You'll end up finding that out. Trust me. And then from there is when you can figure out, after you do your log, if this is going to be a business that you buy. But get here first, which is why you're doing the log before you get to your logo, because you need to determine this stuff. And you're going to list all the reasons why, and then all the reasons why not. And you will need to determine the main problem or improvement about your business so that you can come up with a hypothesis about this business. And what you're going to do is you want to prove this hypothesis wrong. Okay, so here's my example. So I was looking at a laundromat, all right? And a couple of my pros. It's in Miami. There were lots of residences around it, lots of apartments around this laundromat. It's been a laundromat for the last 15 years, which is a good thing. Not that it's like a new business. It had on its with the right documents that I looked at, it had high cash flow. It had an additional service. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at laundromats is, what type of service does this laundromat provide? For the most part, at its most basic form, it's just got washers and dryers, and people can come in and wash their clothes. But a next level to that is the wash and fold service, where people will come in, drop off their clothes. The business washes it, dries it, folds it up nice and neat for them, and they just come back in to pick up their clean folded clothes. And then an even next level to that is adding an element of dry cleaning. And that could be with laundromat business, or that can be outsourced. So there are 3 streams of income that you can get from a laundromat business, and that this particular business that I was looking at had all 3 of them. And the biggest business, the biggest service, the biggest income generating was from the wash and fold service. It did have room for price improvement, so that's another plus to think of. It had little mechanics to it, and there's not a lot going on here. This is not like physically labor intensive. It is like they drop off their bag, people throw them in the washer, throw them in the dryer, and then fold it up. If anything, the most labor intensive is you're on your feet for hours of a day. The dry cleaning was outsourced. This is something to keep in mind when looking at that type of business, is that the dry cleaning does have some sensitivity to it, because people are bringing in high-end clothes, very specific material that needs to be washed a certain way. And if the laundromat you're buying actually does that in-house, now you've got to make sure that the people that are running that, they understand how to do that. You can't just add dry cleaning to your business, because that you definitely need to be educated in that space. But if you can outsource it, which is what this business had, it's a good thing. And the profits were shared 50-50. So the laundromat that I was looking into didn't take on that liability, didn't have to know how to wash those clothes. It was outsourced to the professionals. The professionals did it and then turned it back. And then 50% of whatever that price was for it got shared with the business. And it was a super clean facility. It was in a really nice plaza. Sorry, I should stop sharing my screen about this part. It was in a really nice plaza. So that was all of my pros about my business, about that business. But here were some cons, okay? And this is really important that you write down cons. That's why you need to, again, emotional regulation here. Don't get excited about the pluses because your job is to overcome the negatives. It was a lease. This laundromat did not come with real estate. So the lease now needs to be reviewed. What are the specifics that this laundromat business is now having to agree to that somebody else controls? A lease is also on an expiration date. So if it's got 5 years to it, 7 years to it, 3 years to it, the business is at a risk of having their lease go up because it's not up to you. It's up to the landlord. So that's a negative. We ended up finding out very late, like 2 days before closing, that we were going to lose the management we had, which is why I emphasize to you, don't get stuck on deadlines. This falls into my con. It was a pro taking over the business with the existing employees, but then immediately turned into a con 2 days before closing when the manager said they were not going to stay with us for a long period of time. It would only give us like two weeks, which is not now. That just changed everything because that was a very heavy point that we were relying on, especially because we are not buying jobs. So no, it is not going to be an option for you to now, or option for me in this case, to move from Naples to Miami to go be in this business to manage it. And even if I did that for a short period of time, I still needed to be quick about finding a reliable manager, which now puts me at risk when taking over this business. So don't get caught up on the deadline like you need to close. Oh my God, closing is 2 days away. It's, oh, closing is 2 days away. And now that's going to change up everything for me. And I'm going to have to ask for an extension because that's not going to work. There was cash liability. So in laundromats and in any other business, how much of it is coming from credit cards and how much of it is coming from cash? If I'm not going to be there, I'm going to have to now put that responsibility in somebody I really don't know about. And so there's liability there to with the cash, the coins for that business. The other negative that was a pro is the fact that it is heavily wash and fold. What happens if I lose the customer base? What happens if another COVID shows up and they shut down that type of business? This is just something that you have to think about. We'd have to put in completely new management. The rent was very high. The rent, when you looked at its expense on the P&L, every single month was a different amount. So this is something that I'm going to teach you about how you need to go line by line, month by month, to say, all right, if rent's supposed to be $3,000, then it better be $3,000 every single month. But if I look at it this month and it's $3,100, and then this is $4,500, and then this is 60 set, what's going on here? This is what's then going to start the O, which is where your calibrated questions are going to come from when you're looking at these documents. So high rent was an issue, older machines, a couple of them were broken, the dry cleaning was outsourced. I need you all to understand too, is that when you're working with different vendors, sometimes when they come in with a new owner, they end up stop doing business with now your new business for a number of reasons. Could be maybe they were offering this past owner the cheapest pricing and they've been looking for a way out. And the moment they knew a new owner was coming in, they can now finally charge their market rate, or it's finally their opportunity just to be done with that business because they've always wanted to just get out of that and move on to something else. So the dry cleaning is a risk with having it being outsourced, because is this person going to continue to do business with you? And the fact that this was a cash deal based on its official reports being negative. So they were showing negative P&Ls officially. And then they had a second group of books that were positive, but that really doesn't work in your favor when they want an all cash deal, because they're really getting the best of both worlds when truly their real financials don't actually show it as a profitable business. So these were all of my pros and cons. This is something that you too will have to do when you are doing this process of listing out these reasons why to buy the business and the reasons why not. And the biggest problem of all was this last part that I just shared with you, with the fact that she had two separate books. On one, her internal book showed high cash flow, but yet her official reports to the government showed negative. So there is a big problem with that. And the main point, the hypothesis, the one thing that I need to prove wrong is the fact that she doesn't actually do what she's showing on her internal books. That's what I'm trying to prove wrong. I'm trying to prove that what she's showing me over here isn't actually the case. And what is the case is the fact that she's a negative business that doesn't actually do the cash flow that she's trying to tell me. And so that's the one hypothesis that I went into with this business, is I need to prove the fact that I'm right, that she's wrong in showing this cash flow. And so I'll tell you what ended up happening with just me creating that one hypothesis. As another example of a hypothesis, this other business that I just looked at that I went up to in Missouri, the hypothesis that I need to prove wrong is the business owner was telling me that the only improvement that needs to be done at this business, the only thing that this business needs is better marketing. So now I go, okay, so that's the main thing about this business, is that it only needs marketing. That would be a pro. It only needs marketing because it's got cabins and it's got art sites and it's got a pool and games and it's got all these great things. And so the only thing that needs to happen is the marketing. And so I went into that with trying to prove the fact that no, it doesn't only just need marketing. I'm trying to prove it wrong, because if I prove it right, then great. Yes, it only needs marketing. If I proved my problem wrong with the coin laundry, yes, she actually does do the cash that she's telling me on her other books, then great. I can continue moving on with this purpose, but you will need to figure out what that main problem is, that one improvement that needs to be done wrong, so that you can determine, again, is this something that I'm going to continue to move forward with or not? Because if she didn't do the cash that she was showing me, and she truly is a negative business, things are going to change. If the truth is, no, you don't just need marketing, you need this and this. And so now things will start to change. So that is something to keep in mind when you're going into this, and to have that, again, emotional regulation behind the fact that it's very exciting. A laundromat, an RV park, a storage unit. This new business is so exciting. Oh my God, all this cash flow. But you need to control that and understand that you're going at this very calculated, and you will come up with calibrated questions. Okay. You need to be super intentional about your questions, because remember, negotiation started the moment you became interested in this business. And the whole point about you starting negotiations is to gather information and determine a behavior influence, which means, like, you need to determine if this person's going to be able to accept your offer or not. based on all the information that you gather. And you're going to do that by asking very specific questions. So from here on out, when you look at a business, you are going to do these things. You will not ask questions like, can you sell on seller financing? Is that the only thing that needs to get done in this business? Are you going to raise rates? Do you only offer snow cones during the winter time? Does this business do great during the summer? These are like very basic questions that are not going to incite real answers. Okay. You don't want questions that are just going to get you to, yes, I am going to do that. Oh, yeah, yes, yeah, we do great. We do great during the summer. No, we're not going to raise the pricing of that. That doesn't help you understand what's really going on with the business. And so you will now, when you are talking to a seller, when you are talking to a broker, you will ask calibrated questions that start with what, why, and how. Okay, so some questions that you can ask with what, why, and how. What about this is important to you? How can I make this better for you? How would you like me to proceed? What is it that brought us into this situation? How can we solve this problem? See how these questions like what and how are going to now incite me to be like, how can we solve this problem? I need to sell by this date. I would like to close with this much amount of money. I want to keep this. I want to keep the name. I want you to keep this person, so that then you can then open up the floodgates to, why do you want me to keep the name? Why do you want me to keep the name for any specific reason? This is going to then open up other calibrated questions so that you can really get to the bottom of what's going on behind the scenes that you will not get just by looking at some marketing material, looking at an Excel sheet, just asking some couple of questions. You're going to want to dive deep into this. Again, taking your time, the self-control of taking your time, not feeling rushed about this, and avoid questions that only give you yes and no. So it says here that the who, the where, and the when will get the other party to share a fact and nothing else. So who runs the place? Melinda, she does. Where do you have parties? Over there in the rec house. When does that happen? Oh, that happens between April and October. And that's it. It's just a fact. It doesn't open up the floodgate. What is the process behind your check-in? How do you do the dry and fold? They come in, they drop off their stuff right here. We weigh it. We come over to the computer. We enter in their number. It's going to print out a receipt. We hand it to them, to the receipt. And then we're going to take it over here. We're going to put a sticker on this machine and that machine. And we use different colors for that. And then after that, we're going to move it over the dryers and we move those stickers back over there. And then we fold it up just like this, real nice and neat. We put 3 dryer sheets in this, and then we're going to tighten it up and we put it over here in the corner. That is what is going to help me understand, number one, how to do this service, what's going on here, and what I can improve on when I take over. But if you just ask, who does the dry and fold? Oh, she does and he does. Okay. Oh, where do you put the bags when they come in? Oh, right there in the corner. That's not going to elicit further information for you. And you're going to want to ask these very early on and as often as you need to. The reason why I said this process repeats itself over and over again, because you will find things that you'll need to ask another question for, and another question for, and another question for. You do not stop this, because again, this is an important decision. This is a big play. And you do need to make a good decision at the end of the day into a good business. You're not buying a job. You're not buying problems. So in order for you to not do those things, you need to get as much information as you can out of it with the self-control of you not feeling like you are on a time limit or trying to meet a deadline. What you're trying to do is buy a good business and not make a bad decision. And you will use the documents to help you with these calibrated questions. For example, when I shared with you that the lease payment, when I saw on the financial report every single month, I'm looking at the rent change, all different types of numbers. There was nothing straight about it. What is making this lease payment change every single month? She's on a prorated rate. So in the lease payment is her expense for the lights for the plaza, for the electricity for the plaza, and for the signage. And so the electricity is going to fluctuate, the light's going to fluctuate. And so that is what is added on to the lease payment, and why we see a lease payment that changes every single month, because it's not going to be the same. That is what you want to hear. That is the type of question that you're going to look at when you, again, dissect this line by line and come up with questions. That is why you're going to ask for these documents before, is because you will start there. You'll start on the P&L and you'll look at the income that comes through, the expenses that go through, and you will come up with these calibrated questions so that you can turn it over to the seller, the broker, somebody who handles this information, so that you can get more information about what's going on.